Hello! I am finishing up winding a warp. I already have 3 chains done, so I am literally at the end of finishing the warp, a 2.5 yard warp. I have created this particular warping board so that it can just set on my desk. It's for the smaller projects. I have a much larger board for my 13 yards if I need that. But this is a 2.5 yard project. My board is 1.5 yards between each point. I'm sorry, it's half a yard between each point. And I have them each labeled. So coming around the cross, there's half a yard, 1 yard, 1.5, 2 yards, 2.5. I always start at the bottom. This particular one I'm using a hand, my sister used to raise sheep, and so she actually sheared her sheep and has spun the wool, and I have dyed this with an indigo dye. You could there's little bits of hay, and I've been kind of picking out little bits of hay here and there from the warp, so we know that it's homegrown. Anyway, so one of my balls just ran out, so I put another ball into my handy dandy plastic bucket to keep the balls nice and separated. And what I do is I just come down here. We're going to go to a better spot at the beginning where it's more firmly wound. I literally tie it on at the end, so however long I want my warp to be, I'm going to tie it at that spot. So this is a 2.5 yard warp, so I'm starting at the bottom at 2.5 yards, and I simply make sure that I can pull it all up out of the ball, and I wind it around and around here, and then I start the cross. So I come up underneath of these two, over top of this, and then underneath of this. Now I like this visual rather than simply coming across here and using these as the cross. I like having this extra space so that I can visually see much better. I'm getting old, and so my eyesight is not the greatest. Then I come back down here, and then I wrap it around the bottom peg again, back up underneath these two, over this section, and then I make the cross by coming back up over and then down and around. Each of my bouts that I have done are in sections of 20, and as you can see, I've started to make sure that I've got all of these 20 separated so that I can easily count how many I have. So if these are each 20 and I've just finished that last bout, we have 100 ends on this particular chain. So then I cut, and I just tie it off. Tie it in a knot. You're going to have probably anywhere from 15 to 30 inches of loom waste, and that is entirely dependent on the size of your loom and how much room there is from the back beam to your heddles. So don't quote me on that, but usually I have anywhere from 15 inches to 26 inches of loom waste. So we're talking about that much. So the rest of this can be the project. Now, a lot of people will actually tie this right here so that at the end when they're putting it on, they've already got these separated because their rattle is in bouts of 1 inch. Mine is in about of 1/2 inch. I tend to take these pieces out, but that is not necessary. You can totally leave it in, and that might make it easier for you to put it on the loom. So I will take that off because I know that I have 100 on this now. And then I have a bunch of choke ties. So I've got one for each side of the cross, and because it's such a short length, I will simply have one here on the end, and then I will tie those all together with this piece. So to begin, you do not want to put this piece, which is your guiding string, you don't want to put that piece in any of your ties. But you do want to make sure that you tie off your cross so that you can easily get that put into your lease sticks. So that's what I'm doing here. We'll tie off the cross. I only use them on the top. Some people will put them on the bottom as well. That's entirely up to you. There is no right or wrong way to do this, as I will continue to preach. And then I tie one on the end here just to show that this is the loop. Oh, come on. There we go. Now, I want you to notice that I'm simply doing a half knot with a loop. That way, when I get it onto the rattle, I can just give a tug to the end and the whole thing comes off. I do tie them on fairly tightly. I like to get them, tucked down pretty tightly just to make sure that they stay. So to take it off of the warping board, I slide this end. I have to keep tension here, otherwise the whole thing is just going to fall off altogether, right? So I will put my finger through this area and then I will slide it off. My finger is still here and I'm still keeping tension on it. Pull my hand through, reach for that bout. Okay, this is a chain. This is how you chain, and you just continue that through. Okay, so you have a loop, you put your fingers through it, grab the next section, and now you have another loop. You just kind of slide that through, put your hand through, grab that section, and you have another loop. You do that all the way across. So I don't care if you have a 13-yard warp, I don't care if you have a 2-yard warp, this is how you make the chain to make it so much easier to handle. When I get up here, note that I am grabbing this bit right here, and then I reach over for the end. Now, the issue with having this opening is that now you've got two bits at the top that are not exactly even. So in order to do that, I've got this gripped, and I pull to make sure that this is all straight rather than having this part more in the... I'm very bad at explaining that, but I do pull it out to make sure that it's all straight. Then I pull this loop through again, and I connect it this way so that it doesn't come undone while I am carrying it back and forth to the loom. And as you can see, I have left my leader string on so that if I come back, I can see exactly how I come up and under, up and over, and then up and over again, so I can follow that the next time I use my warping board. Hope that helped show you how I make my chains, and I guess I'm about ready to start my next project. This is very exciting for me.